റെക്കോർഡിംഗ് ഓപ്ഷൻ എവിടെ? ഇതെല്ലാം കാണുന്നില്ലല്ലോ. റെക്കോർഡിംഗ് ഓൺ ആണോ?
New, okay. Anyone else? Okay, let me take an example. Right? We've all been to school. We have all studied a lot of inventors. Right? What is this? Is my screen visible? I'll change my pointer. You can see Chester Carlson, 1937. Ever heard his name? And what is this that he's building in his hand? Any thought? New recipe. Yes, from the food side, I can say new recipe can also be an invention. Who is Chester Carlson? Any idea? So Chester Carlson is a person who built the technology for photocopying. But we never know him. Whom do we know? We primarily know the entities like Xerox and Fujifilm. So what you see in the hand of Chester Carlson is electrophotography technology. And being an inventor, he developed the technology for doing photocopying. Why don't we call him an innovator? Primarily because his interest was, I will look at inventions to come out from my lab. I am not primarily focused on seeing whether there is an application for this, whether there is a social application, whether there is an economical application. I am a researcher. I will go on inventing things, patent it, right? Now, if I take an example of based on a recipe, I cook in my home, right? I come out with my own recipes. I keep it to myself. I don't want to project it out to the world and see, okay, can the larger audience make use of it? I can be called at max an inventor. On the other hand, when you're looking at innovation, innovation is exploiting the potential in the invention. Are you with me? I'll give you another example. Edison. Edison in school is taught as an inventor, right? Our school education teaches us that Edison invented bulb. But nobody tells us that Edison actually put in an effort to see whether the invention can be exploited for a social value, for a commercial value, for a technological value, so on and so forth. So what differentiates an invention to innovation is, inventions need not be generating value or creating value. The moment you see and put in an effort to generate value, nurture value, create value out of the invention, you turn into an innovator, right? You have a very good example of Steve Jobs. Is he ever called as an inventor, or you only hear him as an innovator? Where do you hear his name? As an inventor or as an innovator? Please respond. Okay, I can see more people joining. Please, you can open up your mic. If you have good bandwidth, you can switch on your camera, if possible. Do you hear, okay, innovator, okay. Why don't we hear Steve Jobs to be an inventor? I'm actually asking a very basic level, foundation level. I'm starting from there. Because if this is not clear, things ahead cannot be clear. As simple as that. Why don't we call Steve Jobs an inventor, but we call him an innovator? Primarily because all the existing ecosystem had different components to come out with a PC, for example, if PC is a consideration, right? A computing device. But nobody thought that this can be taken up, put into a system, right? Packaged into a system, and it can create value for some users, the stakeholders in the environment. And in that process, an organization can also create value. Take another example, starkly contrasting example, where an entity like Xerox Spark, you've heard this company, right? Xerox, which is a photocopying entity. They have an R&D unit which is known as Xerox Spark. They only do R&D. So when Steve Jobs was in search of a graphic user interface, a device which can give human commands to machine language, his team was not able to find one in the ecosystem. So he was visiting his colleague in Xerox Parks when he stumbled upon a mouse-like equipment, right? This mouse doesn't have a wire, but what he saw was something like this with a wire connected to it. So he asked his colleague, what is it? So his colleague mentioned that as a R&D effort, we are trying to develop a equipment, a device which can give input to a machine. Now, based on this conversation, he goes back to Apple, conveys to his team about what to be developed as an input device. Now, if you Google search this story, you will come across two different facets of it, two different parts. One, where Steve Jobs is alleged to be a thief because he has stolen an idea from Xerox PARC. On the other hand, the other part of the story, the second strand of the story says that no, he's not a thief. He actually found a value. He found an application for the invention by Xerox PARC, so he can be called as an innovator. Now, when you look at your journey until now, you all need to be very clear on what is it that you have undertaken until now, right? It will be primarily invention to innovation, right? You need not be an inventor, right? Being an IIT, I need not be an inventor to find a technology and make a commercial value of it. If I keep my senses open, I can look at colleagues around in my institute and see, okay, they have many patents. Why can't I take one patent and identify a viable use for it? That viable use can gain social benefit. That viable use can gain maybe economic benefit as well. So when you are looking at your journey towards innovation and your journey towards entrepreneurship, design thinking becomes a tool in this journey, right? And the emphasis here is on innovation. Now, when you say innovation, you all need to understand it from a very, very basic perspective that you are exploiting the potential of a new concept or a new idea, right? When I say new concept, new idea, new technology, even that is true. And that exploitation should lead to a social benefit, should lead to a commercial benefit, may lead to both. Are you with me? Any doubts until now? Because I don't see any cameras open, I can't see any facial expression to validate whether you're able to understand it or not. Any doubts until now? Any questions? No. Okay. Now, how many of you have heard Varghese Kurian? Dr. Varghese Kurian's name. He comes from Kerala also. Heard about his name? Heard his name? Thank you for people who are switching on their camera. Amul, right? You know the story behind Amul? How did they start? So Varghese Kurian had got a scholarship from Government of India. He went abroad, did his education, came back. Government of India mandated him that he should work in some sector contributing back to the society and back to the government. And the use case that he was given was milk industry in India. What he realized is milk, there's nothing innovation in the milk to compete. What he understood while analyzing the ecosystem is the very fact that there was a dairy known as Colson Dairy established by East India Company. They were mistreating the cattle rearers who were selling the milk and they were not getting due value for it. What Varghese Kurian did is he identified a mechanism to break the relation between the cattle rearer, right, and Colson. And the only way he could do was create an entity where the cattle rearers, people who are supplying milk, become the owner of the organization, the so-called Amul. Now, by doing this, now if I am supplying milk to an entity, I have stake in that entity, I will take more interest in it. And gradually, people will stop supplying Colson Dairy milk and eventually led to the closure and Amul gained prominence. Right? You call this a business model innovation because cooperatives in India did not exist until that point of time. So it can be even a concept. So cooperative concept in India, thanks to dairy success story, that we are now hearing about farmer producer organizations in the country. Right? And Amul becomes the major pivotal example. You have Milma in Kerala, you have Nandini in, I think, Karnataka, Avin in Tamil Nadu, right? Similarly, you have every state having a cooperative model for milk, thanks to Amul. So what did Varghese Kurianji do? He didn't invent a new model. These models existed across the globe. He identified a use case for that model in India, and in the backdrop, by knowingly, unknowingly, he has applied systems thinking and design thinking in coming out with that whole proposition. So first and foremost, it will be very clear what are you up to, right? When I look at the 60 people, there are people who are trying to do business model innovation. There are people who are trying to come out with a whole new market, right? If I recollect a few, the Recipe entity, right? I went and looked at their website and realized, oh, this is interesting. People have been doing it in their household, but nobody thought about creating a commercial value out of it, right? There's an entity to buy Fawaz, Foods, FOO Foods. It's a Kerala-based entity. Have you heard about this entity? Foods, FOO Foods. He's based out of Calicut. What he does is he sells all items with without preservative, but with a larger shelf life. What is he doing? He's taking the invention packaging industry and utilizing it for himself. He's just identified a use case for inventions like Steve Jobs has done in PC industry in case of Steve Jobs. He has done that in food industry. Madame Curie discovery is radium and her research of radiation is innovation. We will have to dig deep. Just hold on to this, madam. I'll come to it because innovation will have to look at aspects of organizational or social benefit. Now, until you identified radium to be put on a watch, right? Go back to your childhood. We had watch with radium, which will glow in the night. Until then, people are looking at radium as just a radioactive material, maybe for limited usage. The moment you identified multiple more opportunities, people realize, okay, a Titan-like entity can take some radium and put it in watch, right? If you work in high-end laboratories where light has to be limited, you need radium to allow people to move, look at the equipment, so on and so forth. So if you look at innovation, the aspect of organizational social benefit, either or both. It can be only one of them. It can be both, right? How many of you have heard about this entity known as Freedom 251 mobile phone? Very interesting organization in India, which if I say it in Malayalam, right? His concept was sell smartphones at 251 rupees. Even I have become a victim of it. 2015-16, entity in Delhi, he said, I'll give you a smartphone at 251 rupees only. And he said, okay, give me the money over he created a web page. I also went in, many people like me went and pumped in 251 rupees each, waiting for the mobile phone. After 6 months, we come to know that this entrepreneur, I'll call him an entrepreneur, right, was a criminal entrepreneur. Primarily because he took away the money and ran away without giving the product. Why will I not call him an entrepreneur? I'll call him an entrepreneur, right? His entrepreneurship was criminal oriented. His approach towards innovation was also criminal oriented because nobody tried this until then, right? Now you get phone calls saying that a parcel has been blocked by customs, police. You are required to remit a money. Until then, you will not get your parcel, or you will be facing a police case. How many of us have received this phone call? I have received it. We call it phishing. So somebody has thought about phishing to get money out from people. Isn't that innovative? That's actually innovating as well. But the only use case that I'm looking at is not criminal entrepreneurship, not innovation, but criminal activities or fraudulent activities. Rather focus on things which you are not trying to do. Right? Tell me, have you seen this image? It says Mitti Kul. What is this Mitti Kul? Heard about this? You know what is the background story of this? Right? I think maybe Dr. Jayashree may give you a more elaborate story. I'll just give it a two-line story to this. Right? A person by the name Mansubhai Prajapati, who is a Kumhar. Kumhar is people who work with clay, right? Make earthen pots, earthenware equipment. He was trying out something new to be developed by his family business. And he realized that the age-old principle of clay structure with a trickling water on top of it will have a relatively cooler environment inside. Can replace a fridge, an electric fridge. So his concept was, I'll create a fridge without an electricity using a principle which was invented by someone unknown. We don't know who invented that principle. But he put that into action and he's bringing a commercial use to it. Now, will I call him an inventor? Maybe not. Will I call him an innovator? Absolutely yes. When you get time afterwards, after the session, or when you're having leisure time, read about him. From this, he started a brick and mortar retail store for earthenware, where Mitti Cool became the major product, but he started selling matka and other utensils using the earthenware. Now, when you're looking at journey from invention to innovation, this is very relatively easy to understand. But the journey from innovation to entrepreneurship is slightly difficult. Right? Now, I want to understand from 60 entrepreneurs on the other side, what do you mean by entrepreneurship? Because design thinking will help you to innovate to become an entrepreneur. So I want to understand, what do you understand by entrepreneurship? Difficult question, I know that. Because you're all entrepreneurs and I'm asking you a question of, what do you mean by entrepreneurship? Can someone respond?
Hey, actually, I have already told Nakul and Jayashree that our participants are very active and they are very serious.
That's okay,
So
Aditya
please.
ma'am. So we are habitual of dealing much more difficult audience. So I'll not go ahead until they respond.
Who have joined us, panelists, you can unmute and speak. That would be good, I think.
Who are entrepreneurs? I think I can see people typing. Who are entrepreneurs? You are all entrepreneurs, right? But why are you called as an entrepreneur?
Sir, making use of the resources to create marketable products and services, manipulating the economies of scale.
Okay. So you said economies of scale, opportunities, and marketable opportunities. Okay, fine. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Meera, ma'am. Others. Problem solvers, game changers. Okay, interesting. Absolutely, yes. Entrepreneurship is leadership. Ah, nice. Yes. Great. Entrepreneurship is the process of starting new business venture, often characterized by innovation. I like this. Often characterized by. You need not be an innovator to become an entrepreneur. You can also imitate to become an entrepreneur. Right? When you imitate, if you imitate and do something much better than someone else existing in the market, you will become a winner. Thank you, ma'am, for this point. Others? So if I take an example of, say, Netflix, right? How many of you use Netflix? Anyone else who uses Netflix? I see Alka ma'am raising the hand. Yes, okay. I can see others also raising the hand. But how did they start the business? It was not a radical idea and all. They just thought that Yeah, go ahead. Somebody was speaking to me. Go ahead, ma'am.
They were actually collectors of CD library and DVDs, and then it got converted to an OTT platform.
Absolutely, yes. So there was an entity existing earlier known as Blockbuster, which used to rent VCRs and DVDs the way it is done earlier in our life, right? People must have seen Harihar Nagar, the first movie of Harihar Nagar, right? Where Jagadi he has a shop where he rents VCR. Same concept existed in Blockbuster in US. As internet penetration increased, an entity came into existence known as Netflix, who thought that why don't we remove the requirement of people going to a store, let people punch the order online. I will send the so-called VCR, DVD, CD in a postal envelope to their household. They will watch the content. They will return the content the same way. There will be a pre-affix, prepaid envelope inside, and they'll put that CD, drop it in a post box, it will come back to me. He didn't do anything. He didn't create content initially. Content creation is recent story of Netflix. What he did is, he looked at existing business and said, can I do something different in the way they have undertaken the business? Hasn't he empathized with the customers? Yes. He has applied design thinking principles to a large extent, right? I'll not get into what principles that Dr. Jayashree will cover. Take another example of Apple, right? We say it's a premium class product, primarily because it's more pricey, because the cost is high. But if you look at his products are usually coming out with a view that either I'll be an innovator, I'll be the first one to come out with it, or I will replicate something which has already been done in the market in a better way. Take, for example, their laptops. right? MacBook. People don't call MacBook a laptop. People call Mac a Mac. So they have identified a distinction for their own product, looking at the way it is sold, the way it is operated, the way it is targeted. Because Macs are usually targeted to customers who are not usual laptop users like you and me. It is targeted to people who design content, who are into developmental exercise, using creative. Right? There's an entity known as 70mm. One of the founders is here. Right? Probably they may be using more Macs as compared to all of us, because they are in the industry which is into content creation, nurturing content. Take another example of Facebook. How many of you are there in Facebook? How many of you were there in Orkut? The predecessor of Facebook, right? The predecessor of Facebook is Google Plus, and predecessor to that is Orkut. Facebook as an entity just realized that, boss, what I'm interested in doing is find a pain point which Orkut is not able to solve, and do it in a better way. Not just do it once, but continually improve on it so that I can exist, Orkut may not exist. Take another example of Flipkart. Right? If you look at e-commerce industry in India, the big players did not enter directly. All the big players like Amazon waited. They said, let the industry get developed, let some entity in India put in their money, put in their resources, burn the resources, make the market understand how to buy online, how to transact online for things which usually you will buy offline, right? The same is the story for Zepto, Dunzo, Instamart, right? Recently, when I was in Kerala, I realized that Instamart has started functioning. I reached out to someone in Swiggy Instamart in Kerala division and asked them, how much money do you make? And their point was they're not making any money, primarily because nobody understands this concept. The concept that the people understand is give a phone call to the retail outlet, he will give you the items, or you take your vehicle, go to a retail outlet and buy and come. But 15 years down the line, 5 years down the line, I'm saying 15 is too long a time. 5 years down the line, the retail stores will be dependent on Instamart to actually make a business. So entrepreneurship is not just starting a business. Focus on the second bullet point, right? These are not definitions. I'm not giving you definitions, but these verbatims have actual sense in understanding innovation through design thinking. Right? It's not just about starting a business. It's about identifying opportunities. Somebody mentioned this in the chat to me. It's about allocating the resources. It's about creating value. Not just creating, but once I create, I also need to capture value. So when you're looking at entrepreneurship venture, you may or may not innovate. The choice is yours. But being an entrepreneur, you do not have a choice but be amenable to concepts of design thinking. Edison has done this even before design thinking as a concept existed. Way back, right? Henry Ford has done this in 1907 when he came out with the first mechanized car. People have been doing it since business existed in the world. Barter system also, there was design thinking, right? Why will I take rice from you and I'll give you milk? There should be some kind of a design thinking approach of empathize. I understand you need rice, I need milk, so there's a barter system. The precursor to all this is, what do you want to achieve? What's your purpose? Right? I want everyone's attention here because I'm also trying to do some kind of a psychological surgery with all of you, because I want to make some change in the way you think. Right? If your purpose is clear, your life is very easy to go ahead. Right? I'll tell you a story first. And the story has primarily three people, right? Three important characters, right? One is Kodak. You all know this entity. Another is Fujifilm. Again, you know this entity. And the third set of people is these two people, right? One fat guy and one lean guy. They are known as Hunt brothers. It's a real story. So during 1970s, Hunt brothers, they had deep pockets. They are a rich family. They started buying out silver mines in the world. And if one entity starts buying out any resource, what will happen? The price of that commodity will go up. So they started buying out silver mines somewhere in 1976. And gradually the silver prices went up during 1979 and 1980. Are you with me until now? Yes. Now, silver price going up started affecting Kodak and Fujifilm. Can someone tell me how? Any science geek here in the group? What is the role of silver with Kodak and Fujifilm, or rather photography industry? So if you look at the earlier technology of silver, of camera, you had these reels, right? Which we call as rolls, which will feed inside a camera, right? That required silver to be manufactured. And as Amrita ma'am mentioned, to develop the film, you need silver nitrate, right? Not only develop the film, but if I were to develop a photo out of it, right, you will have dark room. You use a component as silver bromide to develop the photo. Now, as the silver prices went up, Kodak and Fujifilm started feeling the heat out of it because their price, their costing will increase. Am I right? You're all into some business where you understand costing. What Kodak, a US-based entity, did, what Fujifilm, a Japan-based entity, did is they went to their government and said, do something against these Hun brothers, or else our business is going to go for a toss. The regulators in these countries found Hun brothers, put them behind bar, jailed them, took the ownership of silver mines under the government's control, and the prices gradually came down, right? Which what you see in 1988 onwards, right? There is a dip in the price. It's business as usual, right? What I told you now is just a teaser. Before this whole episode happened, in 1973, there was a person working in the R&D department of Kodak who had come out with a prototype. I hope I can use this word, proof of concept prototype, MVP, which is your goal as part of your pre-incubation program, right? You have to come out with an MVP. So this Steven Sasson had come out with an MVP, a proof of concept, for a digital camera in 1973, before this fiasco happened, and took it to his top management in Kodak and asking them for help to test market this product. You need to do a pilot testing to see whether the customers want it, is there a problem, will they accept it, so on and so forth. You understand it better than me. The top management of Kodak at that point of time asked Steven Sasson to go back and focus on what he's supposed to work on, not something which is very futuristic. Right? Now, employees being employees, Steven Sasson went back and started focusing on the reel-based camera, the film-based camera. And then this episode happened of Hunt brothers buying out silver mine, silver prices going up, again declining after the situation was managed by government. After this situation, Fujifilm conceptualized a team, put in resources, and asked them to develop a technology to overcome the need for silver. And in a way, they developed the digital camera, launched it first in the world, even before Kodak was able to think about it. Kodak had digital camera in their R&D unit. Fujifilm started the development of a digital camera post the whole fiasco. Now you see, where is Kodak, where is Fujifilm? Do you anyway talk about Kodak in photography industry anymore? They're all over the place, right? They're in TV, they're in mobile phone, I don't know, they are in many things. But the moment you say photography, videography, Fujifilm is the term. Just connect this as a purpose. I know that Kodak and Fujifilm were established entities, right? If this is true for established entities, isn't this going to be true for entrepreneurs? I'll give you another example, Nokia. How many of you know that Nokia had the technology of smartphone even before Motorola? They resisted themselves from launching it in the market. Motorola launched the first smartphone in the world. They took away the market. Now Motorola is nowhere. Nokia is also nowhere. The whole thing boils down on what is your intent. Intent means purpose, right? I'll also tell you a fairy tale based story, right? I like to tell stories, so I'll tell you a fairy tale based story. How many of you have heard about Alice in Wonderland and the Cinderella story? Both of you, all of you must have heard at least, right? Or might be still engaging with your kids at your home with these stories, right? So, Cinderella, once after working in the household where she was mistreated. So, I'm mixing Cinderella and Alice in the Wonderland together, okay? So, one Cinderella, after working in the mistress house, was just strolling around near her bungalow, the palace. And she kind of gets lost in the jungle as she walks, right? And she's also anxious about getting back to the house, right? Because it was getting dark. It was late in the evening. And as all of us, we at times think, oh, if there was a godly power which will come and help me find the path, it will be great. So she just thinks about it, and a cat appears in front of her. And this cat is not a normal cat. This cat is a Cheshire cat. Go back to our Cartoon Network day, an animal with a halo will appear, right? It has some magical power. So she just thought about it, and an animal appears in front of it, and it seems it has some halo, so it's a magical cat. It's a Cheshire cat. So Cinderella thinks for a moment and says, okay, why can't I use this cat? Right? We do this when we get stuck. Go back to time before Google Maps. You go to a junction and then you think, okay, whom should I ask the route for? Same thing, right? So Cinderella looked at this cat and said, okay, I can ask this cat, which path should I take, right? So Cinderella approaches this cat and calls the cat and says, hey cat, can you please tell me which path should I take amongst the 3-4 options? The cat looks back at Cinderella very curiously and responds that, where do you want to go? Now, this is unlike a usual magical power animal. There is no debate discussion. You will get an answer. Now, Cinderella is taken aback, saying that this cat is asking me a counter question. So I need to think and answer back to this cat. So she takes a couple of moments, then responds back to the cat that it doesn't matter where she goes. You know what the cat replied? Then it doesn't matter which path you take. Being entrepreneurs, we are always trying to find a Cheshire cat. Right? Neither me, nor my colleague Dr. Jayashree, nor the organizer of the event, Aditya ma'am, nor Kerala Startup Mission, nor anyone is a Cheshire cat. Right? People can help you when you have your goal, purpose clear. That goal and purpose can evolve over a period of time. And that evolution usually happens because of a concept known as systems thinking, which is a predecessor to design thinking. Right? The world is moving towards design thinking without actually knowing what's the background to it. Right? So I'll cover in the next few minutes what is systems thinking, then I'll pass it on to Dr. Jayashree to cover design thinking. Right? Anybody has heard this concept of systems thinking? Can someone tell me what is the meaning of it? What do you mean by systems? We all use a computer, right? We call this a system. Why do we say it's a system? I'm using one. I'm using a desktop, which I call a system. What do you mean by system? I'm happy that I can see 4 or 5 people because their facial expressions give a cue to me whether they're understanding, not understanding. What do you mean by system? Go ahead. Anyone? Why do we call a computer system? This answer even a school kid will give me. Correct, right? So there's an input device, there's an output device, a lot of things come together. Understanding relationship process, okay, you're having a hardware, you're having sort of software, set of things that work together. Thank you very much. I think I'll take this, right? System enclose everything. You have many things coming together, working together, right? And there is interconnection in the way of function. So when you look at systems thinking, why I say it is a precursor to design thinking is systems thinking is the way for innovation before design thinking. And unless you understand the systemic thinking view, understanding design thinking view is very difficult. Right? What is system thinking? You look at big picture, right? I look at a system. Am I concerned about RAM, processor? Maybe when I'm buying it, I'm concerned, but at the end of the day, I'll call it a system. right? Usual computer buyers will not spend time in looking at what is the number of core, what is the processor rating, which generation is it. There'll be few among the audience who will be understanding these things. Majority will not even understand what is the generation of processor, what is the core, what is the number of thread, so on and so forth. They will look at the big picture. Now, looking at the big picture will help you expand your mental boundaries, which is a requirement for design thinking. Because you have to empathize with people, right? To empathize, you need to broaden out your boundaries. And that comes from systems thinking. And you also are looking at interconnections between it. So if I am interested in looking at how does the processor contribute to the RAM, to the functioning of the computer, I'm looking at how are they each of them connected and what is the role that each of them have to the other. Right? Interconnectedness within a whole system. Absolutely right. If I am going to manufacture anything, I'm going to conceptualize an idea, take it to the market. If I don't look at the big picture, I cannot look at the micro picture. As simple as that. Now, for which you need to understand a very important story, right? I am a person of stories. So there was a malaria outbreak in Borneo. Borneo is a country, right, near the equator in 1950s. And as we all do, right, across different societies, since this session is recorded here, across all different societies, we do this, right? We do an anti-mosquito campaign, done, right, to kill the mosquitoes. But what happened is when they did this, when they sprayed DDT to kill mosquitoes, cats started dying in Borneo because of poison. DDT had a poison effect in the food chain, cats started dying. Now, as cats started dying, number of rats increased in Borneo. Now, if there is rodent population increase, that means food will get affected. Right? There's a possibility of famine coming up in the society. Now, to control the population of rats, they dropped cats. They imported cats from other countries and dropped cats in the society, in the locality, and said, okay, now cats will take care of rats. Will this solve the problem? Will this solve the problem? The whole reason of giving you this example is this is a societal level problem. Every one of us has a view in it. Correct me if I'm wrong. All of us have a view in it. But nobody looks at it from the bigger picture to see, okay, what are the kind of interconnectedness? So if I'm going to spray DDT, I need to understand that DDT will not just kill mosquito. It may enter the food chain through water or through food. It will have effect on not just animals, it can have an effect on humans also. If you search for this, you'll also come across something known as Cobra effect. Cobra effect and King Cobra effects, very similar, right? In a very different country. The Britishers dropped rat, right? To solve the problem of limited revenue in the society. And they said people should get rats, they should catch the rats, bring back the rats, we'll give you 10 rupees. Now what happened, you know? People started breeding rats in their home. Now, as Britishers of that time, they were very smart, right? They were extra smart. That's why they were able to overpower a country like India. They were also not able to look at the big picture. Right? If I'm contemplating a program for DDT spraying or giving money to people, I am empathizing with them. I'm looking at their problems. I'm looking at their needs. But I do it in a very micro picture. You're gone for a ride. Right? Take the example of what happened with Paytm. I don't want to take Baiju's example. Right? I'll take Paytm's example. Was at the peak, suddenly lost ground. Didn't he apply design thinking? He applied design thinking. Didn't he apply system thinking? He applied system thinking. He applied all the concepts. You name the concept even which I don't know, you don't know. He has applied all the concepts. But still he has failed. Now when he is doing the post-mortem, he is realizing that, oh, I succeeded primarily because demonetization happened. I succeeded primarily because competition was limited. I succeeded primarily because digitalization did not pick up in the country. I succeeded primarily because Walmart did not enter the space through PhonePe. The moment all this came, he lost traction. Now, as an entrepreneur, do you leave it to chance to succeed or fail? You should not. Why I give you the example of Paytm is, he was primarily working on this way initially. I develop a goal, I take decisions, it is affected by the environment, which you will understand further in design thinking also. And my decisions are affected by the environment, so on and so forth. There's a loop. But nobody was able to look at the bigger picture, that the goals will have a decision, it will affect an environment, it will have side effects. As part of the environment, there are other goals also of others. These goals have an effect on others' action, which is going to shape up the environment. Nobody thought that SBI will come out with SBI UPI system. Nobody will think about HDFC coming out with their own system. But suddenly it has come up, and look at the state of Paytm. So from a simplistic view of an entrepreneur thinking only about the market, only about the needs of a target set of customers, my request is, first of all, have a big picture view. Then only you'll be able to do a design thinking view to your market or your industry. I'll end with this another story. Anybody seen this product? It's a very famous product. This is a wheelchair which can help people stand up and climb staircase. It is known as Arise. I'll type this in the chat, right? Arise. Was developed in IIT Madras. So if you see people in wheelchair, usually they are lifted with the chair when they have to climb stairs, right? And you need 3-4 people depending on the weight of the person, right? This also puts the person who's on the wheelchair in trouble because he is mentally getting affected, saying that people are required to lift me up. And look at my state of affair at that point of time. So this team actually thought about a wheelchair which can help people stand up and walk to a limited extent. I'll request you to go and watch their YouTube video. Amazing. It's a female team. It's an all-female team. I have personally helped in the purchase of this type of wheelchair. Thank you. After looking at that, many people have started doing this. I'll give you another example. You all seen people walking with crutches when you break the leg, or the crutch will usually have a bush at the bottom, right? A round kind of a structure. That structure does not allow you to move to many terrains, right? IIT Delhi students saw their friends facing this problem. BTech students in second year, they saw their friends facing this problem. Now this is getting connected to design thinking, okay? They're also getting connected to design thinking. They realize that this bush kind of structure, if it is changed to a different structure, it can be used for any terrain. And they came out with a concept which has a bush like this. I don't know how many of you can see this image clearly. It has a V-like structure, right? Flexmo came out from this. Are they making money from it? Maybe not. Is it a social good? Absolutely yes. Ford Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has pumped in a lot of money to them. Because across the globe, this was a problem for people with crutch. Before they got into this design aspect, they actually thought what is existing in the market. Let me see how is it going to pan out in the market. I need not sell this product. I can just sell the bush, which can get connected to any crutch, any stick. Take another example, right? Again, I think female entrepreneur driven, primarily female entrepreneur driven. An entity in Gujarat known as Bioscan Research developed the product known as Cerebro. You can all read what it is. It says non-invasive detection of intracranial hemorrhage, right? A kid falls down in school while playing. There's no visible injury in the kid, right? No seizure, no fits, no blood from nose, ears, nothing. And the kid is doing fine. What will be the usual diagnosis? Everything is fine. No need for any further diagnosis requirement. Right? No need for CT scan, etc. But this kid, as it grows up, after 15 years, that injury in the school will cause a blood clot in his head and lead him to a neurosurgery. So what you could have solved with one small needle now requires a big knife. So what this entity thought is, why can't we come out with a device which can detect the requirement for a CT scan based on internal averages? Who buys this product? Sports teams, schools, rural public health centers, right? All sports teams. I think IPL also have recently bought this for every team. Because there's no visible injury, but I need to take a cause of action. What should I do? First that they understood is not this market. They understood the normal CT scan market to understand what is it that they can do with their research. My humble request is that please look at the larger picture first, right? Another example, Jayashree ma'am, I'll take 2 more minutes of yours. Jayashree ma'am is there. I have this bad habit. Jayashree ma'am, you're there. Okay, fine. No worries, sir. Thank you, ma'am. If you look at the example of stethoscope, a digital stethoscopes are there, many in the market, right? Muse Diagnostics, you can make a note of this, Bangalore-based startup. Again, primarily driven by females. I don't know whether the protagonist is female, but primarily driven by females. Digital stethoscope, which has a utility not just for the lub-dub of the heartbeat. They contemplate the product for everything in the body, abdomen sound, bowel movement, bone hitting each other, right? Cerebrospinal fluid moving from your spinal cord, brain, etc. Who is the market for? High-end neurosurgeons. To get into the product development, they thought, what is it that is available in digital stethoscope? Everything was available. But they identified a mechanism where they realized that there's nothing which is a package, which takes it upon all body sounds, which might be required for majority of the cases in geriatric care, in palliative care, in serious conditions. You have this example from Kerala, Adil's entity, Adil Rashid's entity known as Gen Robotics. I don't know how many of you have heard him speak. I got a chance when he was here in January. I spoke to him and I asked him, how did you start this? He said, we understood what happens in manual scavenging now. End to end. Also, what happens with the people who are involved in it. Because if you are going to come up with a tech solution, I cannot make the person who was doing that activity earlier jobless. I should be able to make him train, understand how to run this. Right? People give a lot of weight to the design thinking part because that's what is shown to the outside world. But what is the underlying which leads to the design thinking is systems thinking. Right? Last story. Right? Nestle, you all know this entity, right? Very big multinational corporation. They used to buy a lot of fresh water for their processing of different products, right? And they used to buy almost 1.7 gallons of fresh water every day. On the other hand, they had a milk processing plant, which used to have an effluent, right? Which was not used anywhere, which is known as milk water, right? Nobody understood that the milk water can be processed to pull out water which can be used in place of municipal water. It took them 18, 19 years to understand the utility of milk water. Right? Eventually, they also came to know that the technology already exists. That means they are not required to do anything. Find the technology, use the milk water, right? Discard the milk component from it, use the water back to your factory. This led them to almost save $7 million every year after the recycling cost. Why am I giving you examples of established entities is you will be able to see where they are and what they did at that point of time when they were established, but learn from that at your stage. Because nowadays the industry has become so dynamic that if you do a small mistake now, it might show up somewhere in future. Rather, either way around, I'll say, try to plug small gaps, eventually leading to the development of MVP using design thinking, which can actually help your path ahead, right? Over to you, Jayashree ma'am. I'll stop sharing the screen. I am available here. Jayashree ma'am, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Give me a minute. I'm just stopping my screen sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before that, let me, to all the participants, I'll be sharing a form with you. This is an attendance marker. You know, attendance for all the sessions are mandatory for considering you for the incubation program, right? So we will be sharing attendance marker at the in between the session, probably at the end of the session or in between the session only. So you can just mark your attendance here. I'll share that in the chat. Yeah. Okay, Jasmine. Thanks.
Over to you, Jayashree, ma'am. I stopped screen sharing also.
Yes. Just I'll check if my screen is visible.
Not yet, ma'am.
I will just bring it here.
Yes. It's coming up. It's coming up. Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Nakul, for setting the stage for my session. But before I begin my session, I want to congratulate each 27 or 28 participants who have taken this risk to start their business and venture into the crazy and chaotic world of entrepreneurship. So as you know that my session is on design thinking. So when I was going through all of your chats and Q&A, so I figured out that, okay, most of you have heard this term before. So that lessens my, effort for the session. But before I begin the session, I would request that if you can just turn on your video and we can have more interaction, because I'm not a person who has a lot of stories, but I'm more of a person who would like to share concept with the audience, right? So with this, I'll share my first slide. Is it moving? Can someone just confirm me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So on your screen, you see 3 questions. Okay. So I'll request all of you to take 30 seconds or 1 minute to read each of this question and tell me what each of this question convey. So anything that pops to your mind. So we are not looking at the correct answer. So how is question 1 different from question 2 and question 3? So someone is saying product versus customer focus. Ms. Pooja, can you just tell me which is product and which is customer? 3 has empathy. Question number 3 has empathy. Okay. And what about the question 1? Different conveniences and customer centric. I'll just wait for 20 more seconds if we see that any other answers that pops on our screen.
Question 1 is about designing. And question 2, I think, is about the appearance of the product to make it more appealing for the customers. And question 3 is about the comfort and convenience, making them, the product being easy and more comfortable from a customer's point of view, considering customers, the concerns and pain points.
Okay, so someone has written question 2 is a sustainability part. Okay, so question number 1 is more technical oriented, don't you think? That how do we make a battery with high storage capacity? More technical oriented question. Question number 2 is mostly towards business oriented. That how do I capture this amount of market share? And question number 3, rightly pointed by everyone, that is more customer centric, right? Which brings me to the next slide, that why do we need to study design thinking? So why this transition from design to design thinking is at all required at the first place? So if I reframe my question, what is design, by the way? How do we define the word design? Put down your thoughts in the chat. I can, go through it. And if someone want to unmute, that would be rather good. And I would encourage each one of you to speak up, because your job as an entrepreneur is just not, building the product, setting up the business, but to empower and encourage your team members to speak up their mind. So if you don't speak out, your customer probably won't speak out, your team won't speak out. So you have to tell your thoughts every time. So what do we mean by design at the first place? Very basic. I mean, how do you explain design to a layman?
It's a process of creating it.
Yeah, so someone can say that process of creating something, arrangement, plan, blueprint, isn't it?
Conceptualizing.
Yes. So, but what is the basic purpose of design? Why do we use design? So Ms. Rosa is writing that to achieve a specific purpose or to solve a problem, to change something, an undesirable state into a desirable state. Isn't that what design does? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right. Now, why design thinking has come into picture? So design thinking, I think in Dr. Nakul mentioned that design thinking has been practiced ages before. I mean, since humankind knew that it is actually design thinking, we all implement design thinking and practice design thinking in our day-to-day life without giving it a serious thought. Okay, this is design thinking. So design thinking as a business, it has been used in the business context from the year 1991. Okay. Now, what do we understand by design thinking? Is someone can say that design thinking is a methodology, design thinking is a mindset, design thinking is an approach. But the basic, concept of design thinking is that it's a creative approach to problem solving. Right. So when someone asked you that, what do you mean by entrepreneurship? So someone said that problem solvers, game changers, right? So how do you think that design thinking helps in entrepreneurship? And why is it all required to study design? Now, if you see on your screen, there are 3 different icons. One is saying individual to team, another is product and experience, third one is from engineering to art to technology, business and human. So what do you think the design thinking does to your business?
Refining or refining.
So do you think that your job, in implementing design thinking gets over when you have a, ready or steady product in the market running and you don't implement design thinking?
No, it helps us to update.
It helps us to
update, update the recent.
update. Okay, update. Okay,
and also it helps us to give new approaches.
right. So the basic context in which design thinking is used in a business is that it helps to build a culture of innovation, right? So if you see, when I said that design thinking in business or corporate world has been used from the year 1991. So earlier, the companies were mostly, product or service oriented. The concept of including customer at the center point in their organization was not reflected. Right. So how do you do design thinking in your organization is by looking into the needs of the customer for whom you are developing the product or service. You look into the possibilities of technologies, right? And then you look into that, how do we implement all of this so that it creates success for my business? So that is how design thinking is used in an organization. So before Dr. Nakul signed off from the session, he mentioned about Byju's, right? So we all know that Byju is not doing well now. So he mentioned that he also gave the reason that it was during the COVID that it gained traction, right? But he did not look into the bigger picture. That is what Dr. Nakul signed off and saying, that look into the bigger picture. And when you are describing yourself as an entrepreneur, your job as an entrepreneur does not only end in creating, your business and have your product running in the market and you become a unicorn. You are always in the lookout for opportunities. Right? How do you identify the opportunity? How do you see the change in the trend and how can you effectively capitalize on that opportunity? So what does design thinking helps you in here is that it is an amalgamation of empathy, right? The second one is strategy and prototyping in action. So whether you are creating a new product or you're trying to improve or enhance your customer experience, or you're trying to come up with a new strategy, so design thinking is going to help you with a different toolkit or different sets of practices that you can use it at anywhere and at any point of time. So am I clear with this, or do you want me to repeat it? Please help me, please let me know that if I'm going too fast or I need to slow down. I reiterate the concept again. How are you integrating the needs of the user? How are you understanding the possibilities of technologies that you have with you? And what is required to meet the success for your business? So these three things club together that creates a approach to innovation in your organization, and that's what design thinking does to you. Right now, moving to the next slide. So how many of you have seen this method, this picture before? So all of you mentioned that empathy. I was going through the chat, everyone was mentioning about empathy. So how many have known this Stanford design thinking approach? Now, many a time what happens is that people say that design thinking does not work. They fail to understand the utility or the importance of design thinking in a business context. Right. So any big name that you take, be it Netflix, be it IKEA, be it Apple, be it Facebook, be it Nike, be it Starbucks, all of them have implemented design thinking. And why people don't recognize design thinking is because design thinking is not something tangible that that someone gives to on your hand. So these are the actors, or these are the players who work behind the screen. Right. Its real applicability happens when you effectively understand that it has solved the needs of your customer. So there has been different school of thoughts that have implemented how to practice design thinking, and one of the earliest school of thought was from Stanford D School. So Stanford D School is Stanford Design Thinking School, and it was by Professor David M. Kelly and Bernard Roth, who have founded this design thinking program in the year 2004 at Stanford University. And by the way, Stanford University was one of the first university in the world to introduce a curriculum in design thinking. Right. So according to them, they have classified design thinking in 5 different stages. The first one is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Right. Now, before I explain all of this concept, I want to understand that why do you want to empathize with the people? Why not sympathize? Why they have not mentioned sympathy and mentioned it as empathy? Wasn't sympathy enough to understand our customer? Why do we need empathy at first place? So many of you, when said that entrepreneurs are problem solvers, you also need to understand there are 2 approaches to design thinking. One is the problem space and another one is a solution space. So what do I mean by problem space is that what is the problem that you are trying to solve? Right? And why do you think it is a problem? And the solution space will basically talk about that. So if any one of you can type in your response in chat, what was the problem that motivated you to become an entrepreneur or to create a new venture? Because I didn't get the time to go through each of your profile and read about the business that you are starting up, right? So might be you have identified a problem that is happening in your surrounding, or you have identified gap in the market, right? Or you have taken advantage of any economic or any social trend because of which you are here in the Kerala Startup Mission trying to learn more about entrepreneurship, venture creation, and how do you take the first step in building your MVP. So what was that problem? What is the problem that you identify? And please remember that if you are not able to explain your problem in simpler sentence, then probably your customers are not going to understand what is the problem that you are trying to solve. So my request to all of you is that please have the clarity of what is the problem you are trying to solve. And design thinking, mostly people do not understand it because they don't know what is the problem at the very first place. So someone is saying that misinformation about healthcare and Ayurveda. Very, very nice. Right. So Priyanka, could you if you don't mind, can you explain me that why do you think this is a problem that is needed to be solved? So while Priyanka, types in a response, I would request other 23 or 25 of the respondent to share down their thoughts. That identification of problems. So when I say that design thinking is a problem solving approach that fosters a culture of innovation. So all of us need to understand what is that problem that we are trying to solve. Substitution of medicine. Okay. So Ms. Reshma, can you just tell me in like 30 seconds, what does it mean, substitution of medicine? If you can unmute yourself. I hope I'm clear with, where are we leading to? So my session will basically talk about that. How do we, break down the stages of design thinking? So Miss Alka is writing, I was finding it difficult to find women party wear, which is comfortable to wear, versatile and lightweight. Okay, that's a nice observation. I would rather say it's a good observation. So now, since most of you have identified the problem statement, okay, the next question is that then how do we move ahead? So some people will say that, okay, you do, float survey, do interviews with them, then you can get the first-hand experience of the problem. But my question to you is that is survey and interviews are enough to give you a broader sense of what is the problem? Ms. Sarah is writing the large quantity of medical waste and its unhealthy disposal methods. Okay, very relevant problem. Intimate area rashes. Okay, very nice. Self-medication, relying on home remedies. It's common. Okay. So when all of you have identified this problem, so what was the next step that you had taken? You're trying to come up with a product, or you're trying to create an app, or you're trying to create a new service, or you're trying to open a new store, right, in response to this problem. So what did you all do when you identified this as a problem? Whom did you reach out to? And did you all reach out to the right set of respondent? And if you reached out, then how did you know that they were the right set of respondent? I want to build an alternative product which has been imported commercially. Okay. So what was the next thing that you did, all of you?
Myself, I reached to the patients.
You reached out the patient. So someone said building website, setting up the services, reached out to web developer first, website in process. Okay. So Ms. Priyanka, then I'll have to interrupt you saying that, okay, you took one step ahead, that you started building the website. But didn't you think that you needed to reach out to see that how do I validate the problem? So is it a problem that is, that I consider it as a problem, or it is a problem faced by 1,000 others? So that's where you need to practice the concept which we say it is an empathize, right? Product development will go, but before we develop the product, we need to get down from a building or get down from our workplace to understand that if I am creating this product which will help to build a product that will cure intimate area rashes, or which will create a service that will take care of unhealthy disposal methods, then I should reach out to those first set of people, right? And try to understand that why this is a problem, and why do I need to solve this problem, and what is the responses of them to this problem, right? So for that, we need to start with empathy. So when I say empathy, how do we practice empathy? So we practice empathy basically in two.
Can't hear you.
Ma'am, your voice has broken. We are not able to hear you.
Am I audible to all of you?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
I'll just check with ma'am. We had a power failure and I think there was an internet outage for a minute. I'll just check with ma'am. I think ma'am will be joining back. Just give me a minute, okay?
No, I'm here only. I'm here only. I'll just
Yeah.
share my
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I asked that is survey enough to capture all the responses? You have identified this is a problem that is needed to be solved. But does survey capture all the emotions, all the hidden feelings? So because many a time what happens is that surveys don't effectively capture that what your customer or what your users are going through. They will probably
Yes.
they will not tell you that what is that problem, what is that feeling they're undergoing through, right? And it is your job as an entrepreneur to unearth or to deep dive into their mindset or into their attitude to find out even deeper information that was not able to come out from the survey. So when I said that you go out of your building and try to, yes, market research is there.
Again, there is an interruptions.
Hey, Nakul, she left, I think. Both of them.
Yeah, we're getting logged off constantly.
No. Yes. Okay.
Right. So what you need is a qualitative information which talks more about your customer from whom you are trying to develop or design this solution. Right. Then the next question is that then how do I capture this qualitative information which I'm not able to capture it through survey or market research? So which brings me to the first stage, which we say it's a empathy map. So how do we practice empathy? Is that we observe, and observation is a very underrated skills of of we as a human. We do observe a lot of things, but maybe after an hour we forget what we observed because we don't have most of us don't have a habit of taking notes. And if you are an entrepreneur, you are constantly in the lookout for opportunity or change. So it's very important for you that start having a keen observation of your customers, right? You need to immerse yourself into their world because ultimately they are your kings and customer. They are going to use your product. So unless and until you understand what their daily life is, how frequently they interact and engage with your product, it is not going to give you a overview of how your product is going to solve their problem. And how do you engage, right? So which brings me to the next tool, which we say is an empathy map. So empathy map is a first tool that comes when you approach design thinking, right? Then what is an empathy map? So empathy map is it's a four quadrant shaped map which helps you to develop a broader understanding of your users. What are their belief, what are their problems, right? What are their undergoing emotions, what are their behavior, which you are not able to capture it through a survey, right? Now someone will ask, then how many people do I need to go to use this empathy map? So if you are starting initially, ideally 5 to 10 different customers are good enough to for this empathy map. But if you go on a larger scale, at least 40 to 50 people are good enough for your empathy map. So basically this empathy map has 4 different quadrants as you see on your screen. First one is say, another one is do, another one is think, and another one is feel. So if you are trying to solve a problem of that, you're coming up with an intimate area of rashes, because that's the thing that comes out of my screen. So how do you proceed with that? So you go to a customer and say that, is it a problem for you? How you have been tackling this problem? So this is a question that you first start with. So that person will say a few things. So then you capture those points and put it in the say quadrant. Then the next quadrant is that you ask another question, that how have you how frequently this problem happens with you. So it might happen that that person does not feel comfortable to share that information with you. So it is your job as an entrepreneur and as a researcher to capture that feeling, that what he's trying to say, but he's what he or she is trying to say, but she's not able to say. So that information will go into the think quadrant. So while you are interviewing that person, you might feel that he or she has a sense of discomfort, or he or she has a feeling of anxiety, or he or she has a feeling of, getting disconnected. So that type of observation should go into the feel quadrant. And while you are interviewing that person, you will see that he's answering to a question, but at a similar time he's undertaking some kind of action.
Can we lose too? Jayashree ma'am. Hello? Is Nakul here? I think both of them left from the session.
I think there's network problems.
Let me contact them directly. The meantime, those who are not yet marked their attendance, please fill up this form. I have shared it in chat again. Okay, joining in next 5 minutes. That's the response. So enjoying the session, right? How is it?
It's
Yes,
really
it's actually
insightful and
great.
very
Yes,
engaging.
Okay.
we
They're
have some
very
weather
experienced
issues.
professors.
That's why some signal is breaking in between. From my side also. So there is a problem of continuity.
Where you are from?
Trishul.
Malappuram, Minad. Okay.
No, 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 Trishul.
It's really good, yeah. Because they are already professors, they are dealing with audience, a large, various kind of people, maybe students, entrepreneurs, many. I usually thought that founders will be able to communicate right with the founders or with the people who want to be founders in future, but academicians also really good. They are from IIT Hyderabad and mm, feedback from the seniors and also those who have attended their sessions was very impressive. But this is a first time for me as well. But yeah, it's impressive. Very good session.
I like the morning session, the Dr. Nakul's.
Nakul, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they have joined us. 1 second. Will they be mentors for us? We are the mentors we are planning will be outside the speakers list. But if they are okay and you are comfortable with them, we can think about it. We have already have 250 plus mentors onboarded in Kerala Startup Mission. So the mentors supporting you one to one will be from that list only. That is what we are thinking right now. But yeah, if the speakers can join and help you continuously, we will do that in the same way.
One doubt.
I'm definitely going to onboard them as mentors.
One doubt, Aditya. You said that the graduation is at the Huddle in Trivandrum.
Yes. Yes.
So whether we register or not, we will have to come there. Is it like that?
Registration will be mandatory for any
I've already
participant.
registered. I'm asking you now.
No. For all the participants, like they are startups or individuals, if you want to attend huddle, registration is mandatory.
Okay.
It is not an invited event for the
No,
participant.
like how you said.
Sorry.
See, I have registered as an individual, so I'm not getting the other things of that business thing. Like
Yeah, that we will share the uh, those kind of options like mentorship, investor connect, everything
Okay.
I'll share separately for the Westart participants.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
Aditya.
Because if we are if we are not keeping that mandatory button in website, many will not fill it up. But we are trying to get as um, mm, a good data about who are all the startups attending the program and what are their stages and everything. So that's why we are keeping it mandatory. So all the Westart participants, I'll share the mentorship and what Investor Connect and all other programs, parallel programs, master classes, boot camps. More programs are there. I'll share that invitation letter separately.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Because
sorry
you are all
everyone.
part of these.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience for the last 5 minutes. We had a power outage in our institution, so our system has shut down, and so I have to rush to get laptop and get reconnected. I'll just share my screen again. Just let me know if it's visible. Yes, sir. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yes, just give me a second. Yeah, perfect. Right. So here I was here only. So yes, before I logged out, so I raised a question. So was this such kind of information can be obtained through survey? So if anyone can put your thoughts on the chat box. Not alone through survey. Okay, not all. Right. So some part, I'm not saying that survey will not help. Survey will definitely help you to understand the quantitative aspect of your problem. But when it comes from a qualitative perspective, you need to use an empathy map to develop an understanding for your customers and what are their problems that they're facing. Right. So if I move to the right? So as I mentioned, there are 4 quadrants. One is say, think, feel, does, right? So your customer or the user might say that I need this fabric to be very comfortable on my skin, right? And when you go for the next question, he has some thoughts. He or she might feel that, this is something that I don't want to tell. It might, upset you as an entrepreneur. So that is how you need to put on the shoes as an interviewer or a researcher, and you need to see that what is he's thinking but he's not saying out loud. So those kind of information goes into the think quadrant. The next one is feel. So for example, when you ask that how was your experience with this uh, with this object or with this machine or with this instrument before, right? So for example, you are introducing a new product in the market, and the customer has been using a product from your competitor. So you cannot ask questions like, are you going to use my product if I launch it? No. So you have to have a way of asking questions, that how the earlier product from the market helped you to solve this kind of problem, right? So there you try to understand that what has been their association with that product or with that service. Right. So for example, he will say that even though I try to use it, but it does not solve my problem. So there can be some kind of anxiety, some kind of not easy kind of feeling that the customers will have. So that is how you need to find out and put it in the feel section. Now what you put in the do section is that you need to observe him while you are interviewing and see that what kind of action does the user take. So whether he is kind of lost in the interview or whether he's trying to engage with any other thing. So this kind of information goes into the empathy map. So please get started with at least 5 to 10 interviews for, if you're beginning to start the empathy map, and if your product is, targeted as a mass, for the mass market, then get started with something 10 to 20 interviews with your customers, right? Immerse, observe, and engage. Now the next question is that when I have a lot of data with me, so what do I do with it? That's the next question. So what do you do with a survey? So many a time, either you put it in Excel and try to see what are this kind of charts or bars coming out. But here you have qualitative information with you. So you will have a lot of sticky notes pasted on, empathy map. So how do you do it? So what is the next stage that we need to do? So have you ever seen something like this in any of your organization that you have worked before? No. So this is a technique called affinity maps, or we say is a affinity clustering. So what you do is
interview 10 or 15 users, right? They will have different respondents. So all your 4 quadrants are filled with sticky notes. Your next job is to identify that for user 1 and user 8, their thought process are same, and you make them in as a cluster, one cluster. So your job is to segregate all this interview in different cluster and try to read in between them that what are the new concept or what are the new things that they are trying to convey. What are this interview, saying a new thing that I haven't thought before, that this can be an important aspect in my product development or in my service development, right? So this kind of exercise, we say it as an affinity map. So when I say affinity, can someone tell me what does affinity means? Have you ever heard of what the word affinity? Similarity, exactly. So that's special interest or cohesion. So we are trying to find the similarity in all our interviews. Attraction, right? Inclination. So you have to find, for example, now we are 20 women in this session, right? So if a new product, if someone is trying to launch his or her own product, so she will interview all of us, right? So it might happen that me and Miss Aditya are having the same thought process, or Miss Beena or Miss Alka has a different thought process. So Miss Beena and Miss Alka will be clustered in another group, and opinions of me and Miss Aditya will be clustered in another group. So there you have to draw inferences, right? So this gives you an insight. Okay, I could have developed or designed my product in this way, but I didn't think it. Now I incorporate it. So these are the lessons from your empathy sense, which affinity mapping will help you mobilize it in a better manner. Okay, so I'll move to the next stage. So this is what we say as a affinity map, that you group all your respondent or from the interviews in different clusters according to their similarity. Now, which brings me to the next stage of design thinking, which is defined stage. So what happens in design thinking is that now you all did clustering, right? But you still don't know who can be your actual customer. So you create a fictional representation of your customer, right? You're trying to create a detailed description of one segment of your customer base. So please remember that persona is a fictional representation of your customer. You do not know. So you might have thought that your product will be used by the age group of 20 to 30. But when you did empathy map and when you did this affinity clustering, right, the insights give you that no, your product is suited to people who are in the age group of 30 to 40. So then you try to create a persona. Okay, if my customer will lie in the range of 30 to 40, so this is how my customers would look like. So you need to further create a persona of them. So what does this persona will contain? So persona will contain this kind of checklist: a demographic, that what age group do they lie, what are their goals of using the product, and what are the goals of shorter term goals and longer term goals, right? How did their behavior looks like, what are their motivation and needs from my product, and what are their existing frustration. So what happens is that you are trying to connect with your customer at a deeper level here. So that is what we say is a human-centric approach. So you are keeping your customer, right, your prospective customer at the center, and then you're trying to undertake decision and understand them better. So what will happen is when you create this persona, right, it will give you a sense of, okay, this is how my customer is or user is going to look like, right? Many a time what happens, one of the biggest reason of startup failure is that they build a product and they don't know who are their actual customers. They don't know that, okay, my product was suited for another customer segment, market segment, but I launched it for a wrong segment, right? So try to avoid those failures at a very beginning, right? Don't try to just jump with a survey and introduce a product in the market just by interviewing 5 or 10 people. Try to get down to a deeper level by understanding them. So this takes time, but it helps in the longer run. So now when you have done with a persona, so it gives you a sense that, okay, this is how my customer is going to look like, right? For example, this is a example of a persona named Christine, right? So if you are trying to launch a new service in the market for new clothes, so she will say that I am used to doing shopping in an online, and I shop online from Instagram. But your initial thought was that, okay, I will open my business in a brick and mortar store, but not in an online store. But your insights from affinity maps and empathy stage gave you the notion that you should create your business from using Instagram, right? And these are the frustration that the customer earlier had, and these are her coordinates. So it gives you a way to pivot in your thought process. And that is very important to understand, right? So once you create that persona, so what will happen is that you are redefining the problem. It might have happened that you started with a problem, but when you went deeper by interviewing different set of customers, your problem will get defined in a new way. So you need to create a point of view. You need to understand that Mr. X has this kind of problem, he needs solution Y, and these are the insights of this Mr. X. So this is how that persona will help you. Now what you need to do is, now you need to brainstorm that how do I ideate and how do I create my product in a way that my product or service will cater to their exact needs and not to the needs that which I have conceptualized in my mind, right? So all of us have thought of, have heard of the word called ideate, right? So ideate is a third stage. So basically ideate that you brainstorm. We do a lot of brainstorming, right? But there is another aspect of doing ideation on a problem is that which we say is a reverse brainstorming. I don't know how many of you have heard reverse brainstorming. So it is another interesting tool that you can use. So reverse brainstorming basically talks about in what ways your ideas can fail, right? So you reverse the problem statement and you start critically analyzing it. Okay, what ways my product will not be adopted or used by my customers, right? You try to gather ideas and then try to look into insights. Okay, I have not thought of this, can I take this approach, right? And look into the problem in a different aspect. So instead of asking that how do I solve the issue of my customer, you ask that, okay, how can this problem will not solve the problem of my customers? So you start thinking in a different way. And there are different ways of ideating. So one is brainstorming, then another one is reverse brainstorming, then there is another tool called mind mapping. So what do you do in mind mapping is that you write your central problem statement in the center of the paper, and then you try to branch out different concepts that might lead you to solve this problem or that lead you to come up with new insights. So that is what we say is a reverse ideation stage. So there are different tools. Now, the next stage is that once you ideate, you create a prototype. Probably you are going to create even a higher version of a prototype, which is an MVP. Now, what you do in prototype, you need to say that what the idea, trying to build a very minimal version of how your actual product is going to look like. And we associate prototype as a fidelity. So fidelity basically means that how your final product will going to look like and how the customer will, if it's a tangible product, how the feel of the product will look like. So there are two different aspects of fidelity. One is a low fidelity and another one is a high fidelity. So low fidelity are generally applicable at your stage. So when you are just starting out to create your venture, you need to have feedback of the customer as early as possible so that you don't invest a lot or a huge sum of money in creating a prototype and then realizing that your product is not solving the problem which it was intended to build for. So when we talk about low fidelity, fidelity can be in terms of a paper prototype, right? Or it can be a video prototype, so that the early you capture the feedback of the people, the better you have time in your bandwidth to come up and reiterate on your thought process again. There is another way of building a prototype, which we say is a storyboard prototype. So basically you create a story that what is the problem of your customers and how your product is going to solve this problem. So someone has given a question on chat. How can we do this for a service oriented business place, right? So Can you just elaborate on, are you asking on the fidelity of a prototype, or are you asking on the persona? What is the exact stage you are asking on? Miss Pena, if you can just unmute yourself. Both.
Yes, for both types. Like,
So could you quickly could you quickly tell me the problem that you're trying to address?
No, see, I'm in the thing of a starting, like I'm in the ideation stage. So I think like, how will I make a, prototype for my kind of service that I'm looking at? That's what I'm.
Right. So what you can do, the initial prototype is that you can create a small video prototype, right, and show it to your customers. Storyboard probably one of your easiest way to build a prototype. So you build a story. I think all of you must have seen this kind of template in nowadays. It's widely adopted. So you build a story that help your user to understand that what is that problem and how your product is going to solve that problem in a sequential manner. So storyboard prototype will be
understood. Thank you.
Right. So this is another level of prototype. So the reason why I'm stressing on the prototype is that please do not build something without having a solid or concrete evidence that whether that problem is getting solved by the customers or the users. So do not spend a lot of money on it unless you have a deeper understanding of what your users are. Then there is another type of prototyping level of prototyping is called role playing. So for example, you are starting now, you might have a team of 1 or 2 people in your company, right? So what role playing prototype will do is that you try to simulate humans experiences. For example, if you see on your screen that for Miss Bina, if you're trying to do a service, right, so you will create an app for it, isn't it? Right. So you make a person stand there and you hold different cards, log into this app using your email ID, right? And then she will swipe. Then your details, she will show the details so that you get to know that, okay, this is how the user is going to face. Right. So this will give even in an empathetic view towards your user. Okay, it might happen. I have asked a lot of questions. So can I just trim it down? So this is the level of fidelity. So how does your product convey and how does your product feel for your user? So that is what you need to understand. So you can either employ a role-playing prototype, or you can go for a storyboard, right? Or you can go for a video prototype. Probably video prototype is the easiest way to get started with. So I think, yes. So once you create the prototype, you need to test with the users that what were their views and opinion on it. Right now, someone will ask that, how do I know that I should stop at design thinking? So unless and until you get the exact requirement and your product or service solves the problem, right? Till then, you need to keep on continuing design thinking for the product development. Right now, someone will ask that, ma'am, you taught about empathy map. How do I know that I have covered enough of interviews? So when we do interviews, you will find different respondents have different views, but you will be reaching a level of saturation when you see that the more number of people you interview with, they will give same responses. So that is where you decide that you need to stop for the empathy map. You cannot keep on going 1,000, 5,000 customers. It is humanly impossible also. So those 50 to 100 customers, you will see a different pattern, right? Different insights coming out. So when you see that it has reached a level of saturation and there are no further insights, so you can stop with the empathy map. Then you can ask me that, how many personas do I need to create for my customers? If you are saying that 20 to 30 age limit is not my ideal customer range, if 30 to 40 is my ideal customer range, so how many personas I can come up with? So ideally 4 to 5 persona you need to come up with. Right. So a person in his age of 30, and there will be another person at age of 35 who will have different requirements. So you are not required to address each and every aspect of those customer range, but what are the significant things that are essential for your product development that you need to take, that you need to wear the hat of that entrepreneur at that time and make a critical judgment. Right. So if I if I have to summarize that what design thinking is, so it helps you to foster a problem solving method that will create a culture of innovation in your organization. So if I have to summarize, so empathy, right? You empathize with the people around you. Define. So once you have the insight from the empathy stage, you redefine your problem. So whether that problem is effectively conceptualized, then you ideate. You think about what are the different ways I can come up for building this product, right? Then you prototype it, and then you test it with your users. And probably this is what you all are going to present to the panel in the month of November. So people will ask you how many users you have actually interviewed with. And if that number is less than 100, probably the venture capitalist or some investor would say, oh, this is not an ideal number, and you have not effectively captured the real problem statement. So please try to at least come interview 100 people. Out of this prototype or the ideation stage, which prototype is good? So you do not build the prototype at the ideation stage, but if at all you are doing, start doing it with a paper prototype. So take a simple sheet of paper, write down your ideas, right? This is what the login page will look like, right? Then give an arrow mark, then the user will come to the home page, right? So paper prototype is the easiest way. Before video prototype or whether a role playing, paper prototype is the easiest way. So if you all want, I can share different links with you where you can understand that how design thinking is actually captured in a real time manner. There's a next question. For a clothing brand, how many personas do we need to create if the age group is between 30 to 40? Ideally, 4 to 5 persona, not more than that, because you do not want to confuse yourself. So different people will have different different viewpoints and different inclination towards your brand, right? You need to capture which are the most effective ones. So when I say that affinity mapping will also give you a sense that which are this probably 30 to 33 age range will lie in one cluster, 34 to 36 will lie in another cluster. So for 30 to 33 age group, you make one persona, 33 to 36 another persona. So that is how they will give you a detailed understanding of your user segment. So any more questions? I think Aditya ma'am, I wrapped up in the right time, even though there were technical glitches. I don't know how effectively did I communicate design thinking to all of you, but if you require to read books on design thinking, please let me know. I'll be happy to share the books and the links, right? So when we talk about design thinking, since these are all concepts, right? So examples wise, unless it is done physically and in person, it will not help you the clarity. Sure. I'll be happy to connect with each one of you if you are interested, and I'll probably share the list of the books and links with Ms. Aditya, and if required, I'll share.
Yes.
I'll also share the template for the empathy map and persona.
Yes, that will definitely help. I'll share that with our participants.
Yes. I will just go back and I'll give you the links.
So, we can have a discussion. If you have any queries, you can unmute and ask, or use the chat. And in 5 minutes, wrapping up the session.
So there is, I want to share one more aspect, which is very important if you are into entrepreneurship. There's a concept called lean startup. Okay, I will request each one of you to read that book. I'll also give the link to that book, right? So the lean startup basically talks about that how you can optimize your resources and energy, right, in building successful ventures. I mean, do not waste your resources unnecessarily. So when I talk about resources, so that resources can be in terms of money, that resources can be in terms of the number of working hours that you put to understand your users, right? So all of you, please read this book called Lean Startup. I will share that link with all of you. So lean startup is also, I mean, closely related to design thinking. So if when you are saying this MVP, minimum viable product, it actually has come from the concept of lean startup. So please
Okay,
understand.
Our next session is on lean startup model.
Okay. Probably the speaker will walk you through. So MVP has come from the lean startup only. I'm sorry that I cannot give you all examples. Had it been an offline session, we would have delved more into that, how this empathy stage is translated in practice. And please remember that you need to ask the right questions. Asking questions and asking the right questions, very thin line. If you do not ask the right questions to your customers, you will not get the answers accordingly. And please remember that users can be very diplomatic, and there are certain level of errors that are also included in design thinking. So your users will try to give you answer that you would like to hear, but on the contrary, you want to unearth the answers from them, right? So please do not get blinded by your user responses. So there are tool sets like empathy map, persona that are there to help you out.
So anyone have any question? There is some network issue. I'm asking this question. Would you mind giving mentorship?
I'll be happy to help Alka ma'am. See, I'm not a design thinking expert, but how much I know from reading the books and watching examples, I will be able to help. So
yeah, I already conveyed the participants that we are definitely going to onboard Nakul and Jayashree as mentors of the Kerala Startup Mission. So we'll be doing that, and yeah, we can definitely use.
Yeah, I will share the list of the books. Just give me a few minutes. I will just share the. So design thinking is very, I mean, close to me. I get, because it's, you get a real hand experience of solving real world problems. So unless and until you use it in person, you won't understand like what is the significance of it. Right, I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you, Aditya ma'am, and thank you everyone for staying till we have crossed the lunch time. I sincerely apologize for the inconveniences that I've caused you, and I hope that you, even if you understand that what is the applicability of design thinking, I'd be very happy. Right, I don't need you to be an expert in design thinking, but at least understand what is the purpose of design thinking is.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So,
We could understand expert of thinking, like we are halfway through, but still we are thinking what to do with that our product.
So once you get started, so once you identify, so get started with interviews first. Unless you do interviews, you won't understand anything. Surveys are good instrument, but you need qualitative information.
Yeah, I've started my product since 3 years, but I did my YouTube, my own, then add I wanted from my patients how it works. And they're happy, but still I wanted to more and more to them, with that product.
So that is the power of qualitative research, which many a time people ignore it. Right.
But myself, I did half back. I went to the where are the conference there. I did explored myself. I took my staff. Then I wanted the feedback from them. By my own, I did it. Now I feel the response, but still I want to grow myself. I get to my patients more and more comfortable. As we know, diabetology, it's a thing. It's a lifestyle disease. More to the food product we need. We want to give the product to them. How to see the high glycemic index. Then I did a easy way how to cook that. More the patients are facing it's difficult to cook the high protein, low fat, low carb diet. So I did in such a way that I did my own research on that. Then I did my own product. Then I gave to my clinic wherever I go. I did my clinic wherever I supplied that. Now I get a good response from them. Then I did a YouTube how to cook that food your own. Then I displayed that. Now patients are using, and now I did a QR code on that. scan for the recipe, they scanned for that, then I did that. Like that, I think I am like.
So please remember that design thinking is a journey of experience and learning, right? So the more you interact, the more you will evolve, right? So before I, log off, so just one disclaimer that when you're going for interviews, like do not ask the customer, okay, this is the empathy map, these are do quadrant, say quadrant, I will put your response in the do quadrant. So don't show that to your users or whom you're going for interviews. It's your responsibility, whatever information they are giving you, it's your responsibility to put. Do not ask them what did you say in do quadrant or what did you think in the think quadrant. It's your responsibility to put it there, right?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all those experiences. We'll try more and more.
Please do it. Please do it. It's beautiful. Please do it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Aditya ma'am.
Thank you, Jayashree ma'am. So yeah, I think there is no much words to say from my end because the responses are already here in the chat. The session from Nakul and from Jayashree was wonderful, and in between the session, I was getting responses in my WhatsApp as well. Somebody has already identified what type she is from the Nagul session. After the Nagul session, she has given a message, and it's a wonderful session, and I'm very happy that our selection to choose you both as a speaker for this design thinking session was not a wrong decision. It was the perfect decision from our end. And from the responses from participants, I understood there are, if they are insisting to have a practical session directly one-to-one, not one-to-one, directly with the participants, of course we can have a physical session here in Kerala in between or within this 3-month duration of Westart. Okay, and we are happy to do that. We already have 3 more sessions physical. We have already planned 3 sessions physically for these participants, and along with that we can have a design thinking workshop as well. Okay, and you can meet and interact with Jayashree and Nakul there. Okay, so that I'll get that response in the feedback form. If the participants, most of the participants are in need of session, we will definitely do that physical session. And thank you, Jayashree ma'am, and thank you, Nakul, for being with us today. And yes, I hope both of you also enjoyed being with our participants, interacting with our participants. And yeah, that's all from my end. And thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, participants as well. I'll share I'll share the feedback.
I think I got a private message asking for email ID. You can just type in your email ID, ma'am, in the chat. I think, Aditya ma'am, you can share our email ID for sure if anybody asks. No problem.
Yes, definitely. I'll share the email IDs and also the resources and templates. If you can share with me, I'll share that. Along with your email ID, I'll share that with the participants, and they can utilize them. And if it is done by Monday, before the session 3, they can prepare and read and prepare well.
Sure.
Thank you so much, and
thank you.
I hope we can wind the session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.